everybody. Welcome yet again to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. You know, Australia, if nothing else, we are known for resource exploration. Yes, we are world-class when it comes to that across all the various minerals, copper, gold, iron ore, and even more than that. Well, with us today, we're very lucky to have Lindsay from Argonaut Resources, and Lindsay is an absolute explorer. He spent his whole career doing it. Anyway, enough with me. Let's hear from Lindsay himself. Lindsay, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's good to be here and good to be chatting today.
Excellent. Hey, Lindsay, everybody has a story. Can you just give us in a few minutes your background and how you got to where you are today?
Well, I'm one of those rare cases where I decided in high school what I was going to do, and then progressively I did it with a few variations along the way. I studied geology in my final year of high school and enjoyed it, and enrolled in a geology geophysics degree at university. And early on I decided that I was going to focus on seismic exploration in the oil and gas space. Came out of university, worked in seismic exploration for a while and petroleum geophysics. And along the way, I started making a few geophysical maps for some junior explorers. I found myself moving out of Australia over to Jakarta briefly to work in petroleum geophysics. And then there was a minerals boom in South Australia in 95, 6 and 7. And I found myself being sucked into the vortex of mineral exploration in my home state. I came back and I haven't moved from minerals since late 1995. So I've worked predominantly in gold and copper, a little bit of base metals, other base metals, nickel and zinc, some exotic projects like magnesium metal, and a little bit of uranium and rare earths on the side for flavour. And of course, in 2016, we had a look at some lithium deposits in Canada for a while there. I've worked, I suppose, about half my time in Australia, in South Australia, Western Australia and Queensland, a little bit of exposure to the Northern Territory. I worked in mainland Southeast Asia for 9 or 10 years, 2003 to 2013, mainly in Laos, a little bit in Vietnam and Cambodia, and not really anything in Thailand. We had a good look around Myanmar in 2003, 4 and 5. I found myself working in Zambia and Central Africa from 2011, and we still have projects in Zambia. And the thing we drilled in 2011 is still in a sort of scoping feasibility stage. And other than that, we go to kick a few rocks around the porphyry regions in Chile, and occasionally, when we feel like thrill seekers, the Philippines. But my focus really has been on South Australian IOCG copper, Western Australian Eastern Goldfields gold, and Southeast Asian gold and Central African copper belt copper mineralisation.
I'll tell you what, that is an incredible background, very diverse. I've got a lot of questions, but maybe we'll circle back to them in the interest of time, if that's okay with you, because you are obviously primarily a copper and some of a gold company. Almost, I guess the way to say it is copper is primary, but gold is a good safety, and it tends to work counter-cyclical, if you will. But maybe, going into your gold projects, do you want to just highlight a few of them right now?
Well, we have a gold joint venture which we entered into after having a good look around in 2016. We entered into it in early 2017, and it's in the Western Australian goldfields south of Kalgoorlie and Kambalda and north of Norseman at a place called Higginsville. And there's been a lot of 2.5 million ounces traditionally has been mined at Higginsville, which is not far from St Ives, which is quite a few, between 10 and 20,000, 10 and 20 million ounces rather. So it's a fertile part of the world, and until a couple of weeks ago, Argonaut was drilling at its primary gold targets at Higginsville. We're in a two-phase earn-in joint venture at Higginsville. We've earned in for the first phase for 51%, and we're currently in the midst of a 3-year phase where we can earn up to 80% by spending $1.5 million in the ground on exploration.
Amazing, amazing. And then turning on to copper, specifically, I suppose, the Murdy asset. Can you just discuss with us a little bit about what you're seeing on your side?
Look, sure. We think that copper is currently in a pretty good position. We think that it's really time for the market to place their bets on copper. We're seeing that price bobbing over $3 a pound last week and flirting with it this morning. Once we see $3.10, $3.20 copper, then the race is certainly going to be on, and the market's very much primed to move into a metal like copper. So in terms of fundamentals for the Murdy project, neighbouring Torrens project, and our Zambian Copperbelt assets, we think that it's time for another renaissance in that area. We last saw a really strong copper price in 2011. That was a great market, and I think that the pundits are picking, and I think correctly, that we're going to see $3.50 copper later this year or early next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And then maybe, moving on to something that we can specifically control a little bit more, can you just talk about Murdy, the project itself, in a little bit more detail, and then maybe just a timing around it?
Sure. Well, Murdy is a project that's down. It's located in the eastern Gawler Craton, specifically within the Olympic Dam domain, and it's in a block of geology that has the Olympic Dam deposit, BHP's spectacular new Oak Dam deposit, where they recently drilled 180 metres at over 6% copper, one of the best drill interceptions ever in the history of copper exploration. There's the Prominent Hill deposit and also the Carrapateena deposit. So it's one of these parts of the world where there are some impediments to exploration. There's a depth of sedimentary cover above the crystalline basement rocks that host the deposits, and there has been historic access issues in the area. Now, Argonaut's been instrumental in solving the latter problem in that part of the world, and we have our native title authorisations, we have our environmental authorisations. We're about to get and we're expecting that the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs will be able to consider a second authorisation for that part of the world in the coming couple of weeks. So we're looking at getting out into the Murdy area, which we picked up as vacant ground after it was dropped by Barrick. Barrick had a bit of a difficult time in late 2015, consequently shut down its Asia Pacific African exploration operation out of Perth. And we had been watching these tenements for some time and picked them up the moment they became available. They've got some fantastic targets geologically. There's good technical reasons to be drilling at Murdy, primarily because all the targets are untested. We're not testing something that's been prodded at 3 or 4 times in the past. Plus, our understanding of IOCG geology has improved remarkably over the last few years. Initially, we had Olympic Dam as an example, and so we copied the geophysics of Olympic Dam and went looking for those things. That was partially successful for people, in the Prominent Hill was found on that basis. Later, Carrapateena was discovered on an anomaly that was essentially a gravity-only anomaly rather than a magnetic and gravity anomaly. BHP in 2018 discovered Oak Dam as a gravity-only anomaly, and we came to understand the geology of IOCG deposits better as a consequence of these 2 later discoveries. So Murdy is literally littered with 54 gravity-only targets. Some of them sit under the crust of salt crust of Lake Torrens. Some of them sit around the coastline of Lake Torrens, and some of them sit on the mainland. We're looking at drilling shortly at some particular targets that are some of the better targets that sit around the coastline. And so this will be deep drilling, sort of minimum depth to basement of about 250 metres, maximum of about 400 metres. So we'll be drilling holes in the order of sort of 500 to 800 meters deep, obviously diamond drilling holes.
It's amazing. And it's so, I guess, adding on to what you said, so it sounds like from BHP, Olympic Dam, there are a lot of lessons that were learned for that Argonaut could apply to, I suppose, the drilling that's going to take place over the next number of months. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes. So there's lessons learned on the basis of the geophysical signature of these deposits and the sort of spectrum of geophysical signatures you could reasonably expect. And there's also been some lessons learned on terms of the host rocks that host these deposits. And the two most recent discoveries at Oak Dam and Carapatina have been in a particular granite body. And so we'll be drilling either in that body, in that granite body, or through some sediments that just onlap onto, or just cover that granite slightly. So we're fine-tuning the geology that we target.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds amazing. And I think that at least to me, and I think for our viewers too, it's really, really important to say that the accuracy maybe today versus even 20 years ago should be far higher.
Well, that's right. We've got the benefit, for instance, of vastly improved accuracy in airborne gravity surveys, but we also have subtly improved accuracy in ground gravity surveys, where we basically find our targets from the airborne surveys. We then move onto the ground and do very precise surveys using ground gravity meters to do the final modelling for drilling. And it's fair to say that if you're drilling a target, for instance, Oak Dam West was 800 metres deep. And so when you're looking at the geophysical models, there's a fair bit of, Vaseline on the lens, to use the vernacular, but we're trying to clean as much of that off as we can and stick to the larger targets so that you're looking at either testing a body or not testing the body with your drill hole.
Right, exactly. In other words, you don't have to be that precise to still be very successful.
That's right. Well, it's not quite like a porphyry deposit where they're enormous, potentially balloons. Right. They can be a bit sinewy, but we have got a very good sort of handle on the alteration geology, the proximal, medial, and the distal alteration minerals, and we will understand whether we're in with a shot in any particular hole or not.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then Torrens, any update on Torrens?
Torrens is sitting in abatement at the time being under the Torrens joint venture with our partners there. We would like to be drilling in Torrens, and we would very much like to be marrying the Torrens, neighbouring Torrens project to the Murdy project with a junior partner in that project. And all I can say is that the Argonaut board is pursuing that opportunity, particularly in light of Aeris acquiring a gold mine in Queensland recently.
Fantastic, fantastic. And obviously we find you mostly as a copper company, but maybe just talking about, I suppose, how do you view, as a managing director, managing up that suite of products to maximize value for shareholders with the least amount of risk, if you will?
Yeah. Well, look, that's essentially my non-executive board members put me under a lot of pressure in this regard, and I'm very grateful for them having done that. And they started doing this in about 2011 with the introduction of a guy named Malcolm Richmond onto our board. And Malcolm was formerly the MD of Hammersley Iron before it came fully under the Rio wing, and he was a professor in mineral economics at the University of WA. So he pursued me doggedly for several years to precipitate a strategy, to his credit, and we've come out where we are in terms of predominantly copper with some gold. But we are explorers and we're risk takers inherently, and so we can see a few things that we think are positioned well in the world. I don't think it's the right time for Argonaut to try to jump on the silver bus, for instance. I think that's not for us. We really think that there could be a very exciting uranium market in the next year or so, and you can see a lot of funds being very respectably managed, placing bets in that space, and we think that there's some good reason to do that. And so we've been subtly watching uranium in the background for a long time. We've put together a portfolio of uranium projects. We've put together a little unlisted public company that holds those assets. And if we see the time right, we'll float that and we'll distribute Argonaut's interest in that company to our shareholders as a bonus.
Yeah, and I suppose it sheds light on, and maybe and this is what I'd really love to discuss with you as well, for our investor base to understand, is your life, Lindsay, as a MD of an exploring company is far more than just the geology, isn't it? It's dealing with shareholders, corporate structure, and all of those factors, as you said. That you deliberately have mostly copper but not gold. You're looking at uranium. Is that also how there are a lot of joint ventures and a lot of earning or farming types of relationships? Are those all part of your daily activities as an MD?
Oh, unquestionably. It's you have to be a jack of all trades, and I don't think that you can say I'm all capital markets, I'm all technical. You have to face up to the things that you don't understand well and tackle them and get to know them. Unquestionably, and as we mentioned earlier, half your life is on capital markets and shareholders, half your life is on running the company and technical things. So you have to relinquish to your chief geologist the things geology. You can't spend your day wandering through 3D software trying to think of places to drill. You've got to outsource that work. And similarly, you have to spend time with the stockbrokers, the shareholders, the family offices, the fund managers, and maintain those relationships. Obviously, now we're not traveling, but it used to involve travel. I mean, you had to be on the floor, you had to be in the room, and talking to people to maintain those relationships, to keep your projects and your company under people's noses and to promote them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for our audience, if nothing else, I would love for them to understand just how involved it is for a junior exploration company, but probably, frankly, for every exploration company, of really having that balancing act and to appreciate the various roles that you must play in any given day. Where on one hand you're right now dressed for the office, but then when you're on site, obviously it could be a completely different look.
Look, I think that's what makes the job fantastic, to be honest, is that, one minute you're advising the minister on policy with regards to exploration and access and or at least attempting to, and next thing you know, you're out on the sheep station with, a team of Aboriginal heritage surveyors or an elderly pastoralist or whoever it might be. It's a very colourful cast of characters, and it's great. It really is interesting. I think there are some parts of the world that have just the right amount of character. Some parts of the world have too much character, and some don't have enough. And they certainly became accustomed to a lot of character and a lot of sort of fun challenges working in Southeast Asia and Africa, where nothing's simple. You're always having to work at overcoming simplistic obstacles, whereas you work in somewhere like Canada. I mean, I tell you what, Canadian explorers who complain about access difficulties or operational difficulties need to get out, because that place is seriously easy to operate in.
I could only appreciate that and only imagine that. Lindsay, it's really been a pleasure talking to you. And not only that, I think that if people, again, can just appreciate just how diverse the role has to be for an MD of a junior explorer, that would be great. In closing, any closing comments for our crowd?
Look, I'd say just put us on your watch list. Watch out for our final authorisation from the South Australian government for drilling at Murdy. And that's the next catalyst to come from Argonaut. There'll be news flow following that catalyst, because we'll be getting on with the job of finalising arrangements for a program which is going to be about 5 deep diamond drill holes into our 5 favourite targets out there, which will be iron oxide, copper, gold, primarily looking for a gold hit along the lines of the one that Minotaur had, for instance, in 2001, which was 200 metres at 2%. Similarly, a prospector named Rudy Gomez drilled about 200 metres at 2% at Carapatina as the discovery hole in 2004. So it's a part of the world with a fantastic copper endowment, and discoveries in the Eastern Gawler Craton on the area of the Olympic Dam transform companies. They don't often bring about ambiguous discoveries. They tend to bring about very conclusively economic discoveries. So if we have a hit out there, it'll be a very exciting time for the company.
Fantastic. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time, and please stay in touch.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for your time today.